All right, Rob, let's get into this. Speaking of loquacious, Draymond Green, who will certainly, if he wants it, and all indications are he does want it, have a media career, a thriving one, it appears. Once he's done playing, he's obviously going to be, I think he'll be a Hall of Famer. He is going to have major credentials as a player, well-known, nice sense of humor, outspoken, really obviously doing podcasts and things now. And he was on the podcast with Colin Cowherd, our good friend and colleague. And he and Colin talked about KD, the KD and Steph Warriors. Here's Draymond.
Kevin Durant was absolutely incredible in those finals runs. As you know, you watched it. We all watched it. Kevin Durant was absolutely insane. Steph Curry got double teamed probably 7 times the amount that KD did in a given series. So when you watch those games and you say, his numbers could be a little down, he's facing a double team. And by the way, this isn't a double team from the Orlando Magic. This is a double team from a team that's playing in the finals, which we know if you're in the finals, you're going to have a good defense. These are real double teams. This ain't some team that's throwing together a game plan the night before and then rolling their players out there that can't play half dead. This is elite teams throwing elite defenders at guys. And yet the guy still averages, I'm not sure what his finals average is, but I'd be willing to bet my bottom dollar is north of 23 points.
All right, that's Draymond. He said a ton in there, Rob. An interesting thing about this, though, is, of course, fans on Twitter chimed in, and KD, as he's known to do, responded to a fan who posted what Draymond said, and KD responded, from my view of it, this is 100% false, meaning Steph was double teamed 7 times more than KD. KD ended up going back and forth, Rob, with random fans on Twitter for about an hour. Here's one. This is an interesting tweet that he put out in response to one fan. I'm a good basketball player. I can shoot. I provide space too. I'm not an all-star. That's an odd one. I don't know if he's being sarcastic or if he's being serious. It's hard to believe he's being serious, but then again, there was no sign of sarcasm. So who knows? But anyway, Rob, here's what I say. And I think this is a lesson for Draymond as far as, in the media. Watching those games when KD was there, talking to coaches around the league, players, executives, the whole 9 yards, defenses did double team Steph more. I was told they game plan for Steph more. Tyronn Lue even said, he's even quoted, there's a headline of an article when they were in the finals against Cleveland, and he said, we're double teaming Steph. So there's no doubt that Steph is the guy that was being double teamed. Now, there's a lot of reasons. One is he was kind of the key of that offense for, this whole run. But also, I was told by some, if you double team KD, he's going to be able to pass over because of his height. So you tried to do Steph. And you double team Steph because you knew you weren't going to be able to stop KD, even with a double team. So you try to stop one. KD's going to get his regardless. So you try to stop Steph. So those are several reasons I was told for the strategy. But to the point with Draymond, Rob, it wasn't 7 times more. You see what I'm saying? And so that allows KD. Look, he knows he was there. He knows Steph got double teamed more, but it might have been twice as much. It might have been 3 times as much. Who knows? But it certainly wasn't 7. And that's where you say KD's right. But KD's wrong because it looks like he's just saying they didn't double team him more. So the point is, if you're going to make a statement like that as Draymond Green, media guy, I think you got to be more factual and say they did double team Steph more, maybe twice as much, whatever. But you over exaggerate and now KD can shoot back. Like, that's ridiculous. That's wrong.
Yeah, and I understand it. This is who KD is with the burner phones, and he's on social media, and he pushes back, and he talks to fans. So not really a surprise, but if you're going to throw stuff out and you want to give people insight, it is better if you can be as accurate and fair as possible. Because, just because you're throwing something out there, people are going to take it as gospel and that it's real. And if it's not, and other people are in the room and other people are have been involved in it, there's going to be other stories. And unless you really have some sort of documentation that says, here it is, it's hard to just throw that out there, and 7 times sounds outrageous.
Right.
Even off you don't even need to be a basketball coach to say that doesn't even make sense. Well, that's incredible. Like that just sounds like it's impossible. It just sounds too much. So I think if you're going to be in the business, and as time goes on, and we've seen this before, and I'm not picking on anybody, but we saw Jalen Rose report that Kawhi Leonard was 99% sure it was a deal done to go back to Toronto. You remember that? 99%. Yep. There's no such thing. There's no such thing as 99% sure. So when you're doing stuff like that, you got to be real careful.
You can give.
I'm not saying
you're an opinion and say, I believe it's 99%. I was told it's 99%. I mean, that is a statement, too, that you can make as a media person. I made statements, too, about him going to the Lakers. So you can make statements, but it's not going to be a breaking report. You didn't break the story that, even if he had been right. That's sources what I'm saying. Told like me. But in the business today, Rob, I mean, in reporters or ex-players or media personalities, whatever you want to call them, we're always on shows answering questions and giving our opinions. And if you're a quote-unquote insider or reporter, you know how these sites will take what you said. Even if you're just kind of like, scuttlebutt around the league, I'm hearing this and that. And you're not saying it's necessarily definitive, but you're just saying this is what I'm being told from different people. And it'll be published as report. Brian Windhorst, Mark Stein says, Russell Westbrook won't be traded or something like that. So, I mean, there's nothing wrong with sharing. I mean, that's what we do. We share our opinions.
Yeah, opinion's different. I just don't think that you got to be careful when you're talking about people making moves. The way it was worded and the way it was set up was like it's a done deal. That's all. That's the way it came across. And if I remember correct, it didn't happen. So those things happen.
Yeah, and what is it? What do you think about KD? Do you think it's a bad look for him to respond the way he does to this stuff? Or do you think, are you kind of used to it? Obviously, you've called him the Masot, but are you more like, look, that's who he is, I'm fine with it. My take, Rob, is just as it's always been. If he can go back and forth with fans and it doesn't impact his game and he enjoys it, which he said he does, I'm fine with it. I mean, there's nothing wrong with going back at fans, going back at media, going back at whoever, as long as it doesn't get you off your game. I think if it takes you off your game that's when you need to chill. All right, Rob, we said we got a special guest coming up, and we're going to get to him right now. 7-time NBA champion. He's here courtesy of Bet Online. So you go to Bet Online for up-to-date lines on the NBA Finals MVP, Finals prop bets, and each and every game line. All the odds favor the series to go at least 6 games, and Steph Curry's the favorite to win Finals MVP. But here on behalf of Bet Online is Robert Horry. Robert, how are you?
What's happening?
Man, I'm good, man. How y'all guys doing?
We are good, man. It's great to have you on. This is your time of year, man.
Yeah, well, I'm sitting on the couch and enjoying some good basketball.
Hey, man, look, a lot of people may not know about your exploits in the finals. As I said, 7-time NBA champion, played with some of the greatest players of this era. You won it with the Spurs, with the Rockets, Duncan, Olajuwon, and with the Lakers, Shaq, Kobe. What was it about? Because most people, I would say most players don't step up on the big stage. They might remain the same or they might even shrink. You always stepped up and seemed to play better the bigger the stage than you did even during the regular season. What was it about that enabled you just to be so clutch?
The fear of losing and going home. During the regular season, you play, that energy is not there some nights. That emotion is not there. You're like, oh, man, I'm just rolling to Denver on the back-to-back. It's cold, the altitude. You don't have that same inspiration. But if you roll into Denver during the playoffs, you got to win. And so for me, I just think of all the things that, that come into play when it talks about the playoffs. Growing up a big Magic Johnson fan and watching him, dominate and watch him pull a hamstring and then you lose to the Bulls. So many different things like that made you want to be in that situation. And for me, it was just the pinnacle of the sports to get to the NBA Finals and just get to the playoffs.
Yeah. Robert, I called Tom Brady the Robert Horry of the NFL. Could you guys both have 7 rings?
I'm sure Tom Brady's gonna call you up and say, "Man, don't be bad mouthing me like that."
No, not at all. Because you came up big, and Brady won a few Super Bowls without throwing touchdowns or having things work out in his favor. So I always give you a lot of credit for making big shots. Hey, how much do you? Now I watch you on the Lakers postgame show a lot. You and James Worthy, and I actually enjoy the post game. I think you guys are pretty honest. But how much do you enjoy this NBA? Because it is a different game played than when you played.
It's different. I think the guys are more athletic. I know we old heads always like to think our era was the best era, and I do have to say my era was the best era. But
I happen to agree with you, and I've been covering the league since 1987. But go ahead.
Yeah, so many things have changed. You go to the rules. You have, the charge circle. Every time someone gets hit in the head, you got to go over here and monitor that. But you know what? The guys have gotten better. They're so talented. The way they're able to carry the basketball and travel with the basketball makes it so so special.
They palm it every time somebody handles the ball. They're palming it.
Yeah. It's so funny. I know these guys in this era now, they talking about they were better than us. Yeah, you're better than us because you're allowed to travel, you're allowed to carry, you're allowed to do so many different things.
Nobody can touch you.
Can't do.
Defensively, you can't get touched, Robert.
I know. I said I love Giannis. Every time he makes a move, he travels, man. That mug gets 3 steps every time he goes to the hole. But you know what, though? Let's give him due credit. So these guys, the way they shoot the basketball now, it's incredible. They have range. They work on the game each and every day. They're talented. They're more athletic. Think about Ja Morant. Look at what he can do, man. It's incredible. It's ridiculous. He's not even human. And the way KD has come back from injuries, the way that Clay has come back from injuries, these guys have the technology to make their bodies better, and their skill set is off the charts.
I brought up earlier when you just joined us that you were clutch, known for that in the playoffs. Who do you think, if you had to pick one guy, I know there's a lot, if you had to pick one guy who was the most clutch outside of yourself, who would you say?
I would go with MJ. If a lot of people heard what I said. I took Damon as my most clutch player. I did that because he's hit a clutch shot in every game. But if you make me pick a player out of everybody throughout the history of basketball, I'm taking MJ. I'm taking MJ first, and then myself second, and Reggie Miller third, and then Kobe and Damon Lillard and stuff like that. But it's so many clutch guys that played this game. But I think MJ, if you really look at it, think about this. You knew he was going to get the ball. You was going to send a double team at him, but nobody could. Ask Byron, ask Craig. All these guys tried to stop him, but they couldn't.
Right.
Don't forget Ray Allen on that list. Let me ask you this. Steph Curry's made a ton of shots, but he doesn't make the big shot. I think he's 0 for 8 or 9, less than 10 or 15 seconds to go in games. When you see something like that, a guy who's had all these accolades, people talk about him being the greatest shooter and whatnot. But if you ask a lot of players, they would take other players with the game on the line. Why is that, do you think? Why do you think Steph hasn't made that shot?
I think if you look at the one shot when he crossed half court, he made it. But I think Steph at the end, he takes a lot of bad shots. And I don't mean that in a bad way. Think about it. A lot of his shots are 20 feet behind the three trying to win games. Damon Lillard's done shots like that. But I think at the end of the day, you watch all the guys who are clutch performers, they get right up on the line and knock down the shot. I know it's a different era, but I'm just saying your percentages are high when you go in. I know Steph, when he walks into the gym, that's his range. But I just think a lot of his shots are made contested shots because they know he's going to shoot it and he wants to shoot it. And I just think he just has a more difficult time to shoot the ball. And you look at Kobe. Kobe has made a lot and missed a lot. LeBron has made a lot. And that's what it comes down to the stars. They're going to make a lot and they're going to miss a lot. But it's up to the other people to get them in the position to be successful.
7-time NBA champion Robert Horry joining the odd couple. All right, Robert, there's a lot of talk if Steph wins this championship and wins the finals MVP. A lot of people out there saying he becomes a top 10 player of all time. Now, I feel like everybody's top 10 really has about 14 players in it. They're not asked who's coming out of it. But do you think that's fair and accurate that if Steph indeed does this, he will be a top 10 player of all time?
You know what? It depends on who's looking at this, because there's 5 people automatically in that top 10. And MJ, Magic, Bird, Kareem, and Bill. Who does he knock out? Does he knock out Karl Malone? Does he knock out Olajuwon?
Karl ain't in the top 10. You know that. You're being nice.
I'm just saying. If you did Tim Duncan, who does he knock out? KD, right. LeBron. And it's when people do these top 10 lists, and it's not fair. Come on, let's be honest. If you look at this top 75 list we just had, and let's go back to the top 50. All right, you add these 25 guys you just add to the list. It should be a 10 or 15 guys should have been knocked off that list. And
you can't knock people off. How are you going to knock people off?
But that's my whole point. It's like you saying that, now Steph is getting into this situation. Is he a top 10? Why is he knocking someone off? You know what I mean? So
yeah, if there was an official list, the thing is, it's going to be fluid. The list is always fluid. But I hear what you're saying. I agree with Rob that once they did the top 50, they had to keep those 50 and just add 25. And then, in 25 years, they'll add 25 more.
Because Robert, it would be, how could you be a top 50 but not a top 75?
Right.
You see what I'm saying?
Right. It just
didn't make sense.
It ain't right, but that's what people are trying to do now. They said when Steph moves up, it's like,
remember the top 50 was not ranked.
It wasn't right.
And the rankings will change because it's always new players. You know what I mean?
Yes, it was so wrong. I would love to sit down with the committee who's picking these people.
Oh, you weren't feeling the top 75 list.
I wasn't feeling the top 75 at all.
So who was on it that shouldn't have been?
Who shouldn't have been?
Yeah. Just give us 2 or 3 guys.
You're not getting ready for me to be a hated man around this joint. Hey, let me just say this. If you was under 35 years old, you shouldn't have been on that list. Because I just think, and if you're still playing and you're under 35.
I ain't mad at that. I ain't mad at that.
You haven't, your final chapter hasn't been written yet. So I don't think you should have been on that list because
Anthony Davis got on there prematurely. Would you say that? Anthony Davis?
You cannot tell me Dwight Howard does not belong on that list. Yep. I know a lot of people hate Dwight Howard. And how many times was he Defensive Player of the Year?
No, I agree with that.
People forget how good he was on that list. Orlando. Right.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think people look at Dwight Howard and say, oh, the silliness he enjoys the game. Let that man enjoy the game. And he should have been on that list. I'm not saying who I would take off that list, but to cover my ass, I'm saying anybody that's, under 35, you don't belong on that list yet because your legacy isn't written yet. So that's
last thing, Robert, before you go, and we appreciate your time. You, as Rob mentioned, you're on the Lakers postgame show. There's talk now, reports, you've seen them all, that Westbrook's going to be there next year. Can they make it work with the three of them, LeBron, AD, and Westbrook? Because Rob and I, we thought from the get-go, and we saw nothing last year to change our opinion, that it's just not a good fit.
For me, I never think $3 $40 million players are ever a fit for a team because you can't get everybody on the team to come play for less money like that. But it's going to be, that's the only reason that it's not a fit. Not because of, Westbrook's decline in stats or AD's decline in stats and LeBron, still being that unhuman individual that's still playing at his level. I just think that they don't have enough cap space to add pieces to that team to make those three pieces look good. And people don't look at it. They think three guys can carry a team. No. Hey, look at Steph, Clay, and Draymond. That's the big three. They make a lot of money, but they got Wiggins. They got Poole. Right. They got, Looney, all these guys that have a specialty that make them three better. And if you look at the Lakers team, they didn't have anybody else as a specialty. THT had his worst year. Even though we look at Malik Monk coming off a great season, they did not gel together. That team did not gel at all. And, everybody wants to blame Westbrook for this, and that's so unfair. Everybody wants to blame the coach, Vogt, for it. That's unfair. They were unhealthy. They didn't get a chance to play together. They didn't value preseason, which they should have, to get out there and get in shape
right.
and learn each other in situations like that. So, I think a lot of times we always want to look for a scapegoat, and we never just say, this was a bad year. Injuries played their part, and our bench wasn't that good. Our other, 12 guys on this team weren't that good. And to make our other three better.
Right.
It's not always about the big three making the other everybody else better. It's about the team making each other better.
That's right, and nobody knows that better than Robert Horry, 7-time NBA champion, man. We appreciate you, brother.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
All right, guys. Take care. Be safe.